Centre Court MBA Festival, we love to look at all of those successful alumni and what they have done with their lives after business school. And I'm delighted to introduce Danielle Schmitt. Danielle is a Senior Program Manager at Microsoft. Danielle, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Now, before we talk a little bit about your experience at Carnegie Mellon at Tepper, a little bit about yourself. What is not shared on that LinkedIn profile of yours that talks about Boeing and the career at Microsoft? What do we not know about you?
Well, I'm an avid traveler, and so far the count is 5 continents, 28 countries, but the fun fact is that 14 of those countries were last year.
So you've discovered travel. Now you came to London with Microsoft after 6 years with them on the West Coast.
Correct.
And the last 2 years in London.
Yes.
Yeah, and a big Tepper alumni base that you were then able to tap into?
Yes. Yeah. It's been really, I mean, that's one of the great things about MBA background is that you have a network pretty much around the world. So it doesn't really matter what city I land in, I'm going to have new friends. Right. As soon as I get there, yeah.
Right. Now, of course, all of these applicants to business school, and you were a few years ago, they're faced with, how do they sort of share their backgrounds and accomplishments? Before you went to business school, what was the accomplishment that you were the most proud of?
Oh, definitely my bachelor's degree in computer science. Right. As you know, there's not many women in STEM, unfortunately. So, being able to be in that career field and to be an influencer for other women that may be afraid of going into that discipline is something that I was really proud of. It takes a lot of bravery to be the only woman in the room, and so it's something that shouldn't be afraid of, but also having people to show you that it can be done is something that's really helpful. So, right. Yeah, very proud of that.
Tepper, of course, and as the business school within Carnegie Mellon University. For you, what were the things that really drew you to the business school?
Yeah, well, I was certainly looking for a school that had a world-class, both business school and engineering school, which Carnegie Mellon does. And so that was something that certainly attracted me to the school as a whole. But when I discovered more about Tepper's culture that really believes in bringing other disciplines together and working across the campus to build, the world of business leadership, which honestly is working with people across a lot of disciplines, certainly got me really excited. And then as soon as I visited the school and just saw the people and felt the culture of what a Tepper student is, I knew immediately it was the school I wanted to go to.
Have you had the chance to go back recently to see this wonderful new campus building that they built?
I have, yes. I'm actually on the Tepper alumni board, so I get to go back twice a year. Just went back in October and saw the beautiful campus. Oh, I wish I'd been there when I was there, but I'm very glad the new students get to experience it.
Right. Now, the only woman in the room in that undergrad computer science class, as you think about those classmates, the MBA classmates that you had for 2 years, were there any sort of common characteristics that drew them together or defined them?
Sure. Well, of course, they're all very bright and very driven, as you would expect. But actually, they're a lot of fun. I think one of the things that I would describe a Tepper student is relating to that work hard, play hard mantra, because certainly will get it done when they need to at work or in a project, but also can let loose and have a lot of fun too.
Right. We talk about the MBA in terms of both personal and professional development. Is there a skill that you think that you developed at business school, perhaps several, that you now have been able to use in the last 8 years of your career with Microsoft?
Yeah, sure. So Tepper is obviously known as a very quantitative school, and so I would say building on that analytical rigor is a skill that I really built in Tepper. I think big data, right, is a big phrase you hear everywhere and is really part of business today. That can scare a lot of people, but I think one of the great things about the Tepper culture is that that's built in not only not to be afraid of data, but also to understand the power and how you can use data from day one in a marketing class through entrepreneur classes and everything in between.
Right.
I use that my entire career, whether that's helping inform strategic business decisions of what to go after, or now that I work on a product, looking at it from, let's say, experimentation to try to hone and refine a product. That emphasis on data and using that to make smarter business decisions is a skill that I really, really built and learned at Tepper.
And so whether those analytical skills or the softer skills, obviously, that are part, was there a decisive moment, like an aha moment for you, a defining moment as part of the 2-year experience?
Yeah, ironically, I think the moment that comes to mind is a moment where I was actually really frustrated. So I was working on a group project, and one of my classmates had been all weekend, sleepless weekend, doing a case competition. So shows up, you know, is there to work on the project, but isn't really there to do the project. One of my other classmates was in the middle of interview season and honestly not involved in the project at all. Third classmate is trying to keep his perfect A rating, and so obviously very, very challenging project. Reflecting on that moment, I've realized actually that's life, right? We often, and in work, we have people that have differing priorities and, you know, conflicting ideas about what's important. And I'm very thankful that I had the Tepper opportunity to be able to experience that and hone my leadership skills, I'll say, where not that it wasn't important in school, but what isn't as critical as it would be in a work environment, because I think those are skills that you will always need, and those are skills that aren't necessarily in the curriculum, or that you can learn really outside of, I think, a B-school experience.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, just as you describe the experience, obviously very positive. What do you miss most?
Well, besides my amazingly talented friends, of course, I would say the diverse thinking. The exciting thing about a business school program is that you get people from different industries with loads of different life experiences, and you're challenging a lot of the same questions, but you get so many diverse opinions and different ways of tackling a problem. I think outside of business school, you often get similar opinions, whether that's because of your industry or your group of peers, and it's really, really hard to actually find those challenging opinions that I think are super critical, especially if, like in my case, you're working on a global product, because you need differing opinions because your customers are going to have differing opinions. So I guess although those situations are quite challenging, and in the moment, you know, I don't know that I would have said I missed it. In hindsight, being able to get those kind of opinions just easily available is something I sorely miss. Yeah.
Right. Of course, many of the visitors at Centre Court are thinking perhaps about those first career steps after business school. As you think several years out of your MBA at Tepper, where do you see yourself another 5-10 years from now, and how will the MBA continue to contribute to help you achieve that?
Yeah. Well, I hope that I am on a leadership team of a global product or a suite of products. Maybe living in another country, I don't know, we'll see. I would say the thing that Tepper has really helped me with and continues to help me with, since they have a very strong ongoing lifelong learning program, is really leadership. And that is a skill that not only it gets honed over time, but becomes more important over time, right? The first couple years after an MBA, you're probably learning some of the skills you actually learned in the classroom. And of course, there's lots of soft skill classes, of which I tried to soak up as much as I could. But I don't think you need them as much in your first years after MBA. And as you continue in your career, obviously those skills and leadership skills become more and more important. So.
Well, thank you for being with us this afternoon.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Positive experience, Danielle. And we look forward to sharing more of the alumni interviews with all of our Centre Court audience. So thanks a lot, Danielle.
Great. Thank you so much.